See everybody out on a beautiful. I didn't think anyone would come today. I thought maybe that I could move this to a patio or something. But you know what? I'm really glad you're here because it's um, a favorite subject of mine, and I don't think we talk as openly as we're going to tonight and tomorrow about karmic management, about the real causes of things. Like everything we teach at Three Jewels Vancouver is steeped in it. It's steeped in an understanding of cause and effect and potentiality. But because it's steeped in it, we kind of assume everybody gets it, everybody knows it. But it's actually not. It's not that it's not common sense, it's not convenient sense. So it's something that we need to work at. So thank you for showing up. And tonight is just going to be a fairly gentle talk. Tomorrow we're going to get to work. But I just wanted to give you a introduction to what this whole thing is about. So I know most of the faces here, and Dan, how did you hear about us?
I randomly came across it.
On the internet?
Yeah.
Okay, what were you searching for when you found it?
Yoga.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And
I'm Deanna.
Deanna?
Found out.
Through Dan? Okay, when were you looking for yoga too?
No.
Okay. Because I gotta tell you, it is a yoga. Now, tomorrow morning, if you come for the workshop, we are actually physically going to do yoga, but in terms of what you're used to, in terms of asana. But the real meaning of yoga is union. It's the union of, literally, it's the union of the sun and the moon, which is a metaphor for your left and right channels. And I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of yoga philosophy today, because if you do come for the yoga class tomorrow morning, we're going to explain the channels and the energy centers that are an important part of like a full practice. But real yoga is using your mind. So it's, and in fact, the yoga of karmic management will inform your physical yoga. If what you're after is a successful physical asana practice. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Sherry.
I'm Zoe. Pardon me for being late.
That's okay.
I was on the highway and it was just crazy.
Traffic is crazy out there. Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
It's Friday. It's summer. This is going to be really informal, okay? So please, as you need, help yourself to water and snacks in the back. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The washrooms are straight in the back to the left. And this is not a formal, like for those of you who come to the Tibetan philosophy classes on Tuesday night, that is formal. But, we prostrate, we say opening prayers, we have a lecture, we say closing prayers, we dedicate, and there's homeworks, quizzes, and finals in that. But and then Wednesday night here is lovely meditation practice, and you get a little bit of dialogue, but you get a lot of opportunity to actually practice different modalities of meditation to help bring your mind in. And then we like to run these specialty workshops to just give a bit more in-depth background on a lot of the skills that will help you with all of the other practices, including just the regular yoga classes that we offer here. So I thank all of you for coming. Zoe, have you been here before?
Yes.
For yoga class or for?
For yoga and the meditations on Wednesday.
On Wednesday,
night.
okay. Have you been coming to the Move It to the Next Level classes, or is that what it's called? Up to the next level?
Meditation the next level.
Meditation the next level.
On Wednesdays right now?
With John?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
came to one.
Mhm.
Touch and go with them. I'll drop in when I have time.
She was very good about the shop.
She was at the Shamatha retreat.
Oh, fantastic, with Doug.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, good. So I'm getting the sense that most of the people in this room are familiar with yoga and have a bit of a meditation practice going on, or at least are familiar. Yay. Okay. Because normally when we give these types of talks, people are brand new to either one or both. And all of that is going to support you in your karmic management. Okay? So, just a little bit of background on this particular, or just a little bit of background on me, I guess, would help some of you. Like, why would you listen to me, right? So, my name is Sherry Cajuera. I'm one of the senior teachers of philosophy here and yoga at Three Jewels. And so my training is that I'm a graduate of the 18 Asian Classic Institute courses, which covers the whole subject matter of what is equivalent. It's not a Geshe degree, but it's equivalent to all the subjects covered in a Geshe degree, which is considered like a PhD in Buddhist philosophy. And that's kind of like the basic training that teachers have here. But I'm also trained in Tibetan Heart Yoga and have my certification in Hatha. So there's both sides of that that I bring to the table. I also have been an instructor on Geshe Michael's Diamond Cutter Institute program when he was in Vancouver. It's going on to 3 years now, isn't it? Yeah. We had really hoped he would come every year. Geshe Michael Roach is the head of our center in terms of like the sort of spiritual head and the business head and the he's an ordained monk who developed all of the philosophy programs. He is a Geshe. And
Sorry, maybe 2 years ago. Maybe 2011. Mamas were already in.
were they already in
Mamas were
retreat?
He
Then they went
to
in
visit
10. So
them.
maybe it was 11. Yeah.
Probably summer of 11.
So 2 full years. And we had hoped that they would come back every year, but if you look on the internet and look up Diamond Cutter Institute, you'll see that his travel schedule is insane. And he's been going to places like Morocco and Russia, and he likes to really go and spread this information in really dense places that most people won't go to. You know, like either there's conflict or tension, or and he likes to open doors and just share the information. So we were very lucky to have him in Vancouver a couple of years ago to teach the Diamond Cutter principles, and it's taught in a business paradigm, but really these are just rules for being happy in life and whatever you want to succeed in. It's a nice delivery system to put it in a business context, because business people have set goals and deadlines and sort of predictable obstacles, so they can see the results fairly quickly. Not to say that you can't if you're not in business, but it's just a context within which you can practice quickly. So that's how the karmic management term and the karmic management side of talks have developed. But everyone who is a Diamond Cutter Institute instructor is a graduate of the ACI program. Most of them are also graduates of the 18 higher, what they call the esoteric teachings, and they do travel the world giving workshops and retreats. And we did the one a couple of years ago over 3 days, and I think it was around $400 or $500 for the weekend, right? So this is not that. Tonight is just a drop-in public talk, and tomorrow is going to be a condensed overview. If you were here for Geshe-la's teachings, it will be a really good review and refresher. And if you weren't here, it will give you skills and tools you can take away and apply it to your life right away. So that's the basic introduction. Oh, and Geshe Michael, by the way, so he is American. He is a fully ordained monk in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the lineage of the Dalai Lama. On his teacher's instructions, he went back into what they call the layperson's world, the real world, to work, and he was given instructions to go and work and not tell anyone he was a monk. So he was to practice on the inside but look like everybody else on the outside. So no more shaved head, no more robes. And he had a real affinity for diamonds in general, and so he wanted to go work in the diamond industry. Well, apparently to break into the diamond industry, first of all, in New York, this is where he was, the diamond industry, from what I understand, is mostly family-based and generationally based, and it's as hard to get in as it would be to get into the mafia. Like, you know, you're actually either born into it, or, you know, there's just a long-standing infrastructure. So, but he managed to be in the company of a new immigrant who was going to be starting up a diamond company, and it started on something like a $50,000 loan. And I think Geshe-la said his first job, because we're talking 25 years ago, was as a courier for them. Like, he just knew he wanted to work there, and started doing whatever was needed. And by the time he finished, which was about 20 years later with the company, he was vice president, and the company was worth millions. So he did apply his practice and his principles, and then subsequently wrote a book, which behind you, it's the white book on the shelf there, The Diamond Cutter, applying Buddhist principles for success in business, I think is the byline, or something like. And your life, yes, which is the important part, right? And the Diamond Cutter Sutra itself, just to give you a bit of history, is the oldest known printed book in history. It wasn't the first book, because there were a lot of handwritten books, but a lot of people think printed books, you know, we think of the Gutenberg press, right? This predates the Gutenberg press, but it was done on woodblock carvings, and then multiple copies could be made. So it's the oldest known printed book, and Geshe-la found a copy in the collection of the Hermitage in Russia. One of the amazing things about Geshe Michael is not only is he fluent in Tibetan and English, but also Russian, and I think now Chinese and a few other languages, right? But the Diamond Cutter Sutra, one of the oldest known books, is from the Buddha, and one of the biggest messages it has is to inspire us to look at the world in a new way, to look at the world in a way of true cause and effect, and to understand that nothing is fixed and coming at you, which is the way things appear, right? Things appear like the world exists and we walk through it. Well, the Diamond Cutter Sutra, this oldest known printed book, teaches us that actually your world comes from you. You create the world around you, and then you walk through it. So this is what I was saying at the beginning of class, that it's not often convenient for us to truly walk the walk in that way. It's not easy, but once you know some of the ground rules, it's really liberating, because it does actually give you complete control for whatever isn't working in your life, whatever is working in your life, and whatever you want more of. So it is about general ground rules of cause and effect. Okay, so I was saying that I was really glad to hear that all of you are meditators and yogis, because the full Diamond Cutter practice does require not only learning and understanding the principles of cause and effect, but to really integrate it, it's useful to have a physical asana practice, because that's like banging on the pipes from the outside. And it's really useful to have a contemplative, meditative practice, because that really is working at those pipes from the inside. And then the karmic information gives you the fuel that you can add to all of that. So in tomorrow's program, if you decide to come for all of it, we're going to do a chakra clearing asana series from 9:30 to 11. And so if you just have time for yoga, you can drop in for that. And then from noon till 5, we'll do the actual workshop where we work through basically all of the basic foundational principles. I'm going to cover something called the 4 rules of karmic imprints, the 4 ways to empower what we call karmic seeds, the 4 forces to remove negative seeds, the 6 levels of patience, and the 7 wisdoms for life. So there's lots of lists, but they're all practical. I'm also going to hand out a survey that you can do for your own sort of immediate feedback on karmic in terms of what's happening for you right now. And by the end of tomorrow, you will know what the antidote is, if you want to make it better or if you want to change it. Because there are actual cause and effect instructions as laid out 2,500 years ago. So this is all based on ancient wisdom. It's not anything I've made up. The system that the survey that I'm going to be handing out is based on the top 46 correlations that come out of studies that date way back. And the meditative practice comes from I believe it was a 15th century, although I seem to have not brought those notes, Indian sage named Master Kamalashila, who through debate established the meditative principles that are practiced to this day in the Tibetan side of meditation. So we'll cover all of that tomorrow. So really, there's 2 things that you want to understand. I already said that the world appears like it's out there and we walk through it. One of the first things we need to understand, Lada, can you get me a glass? Just a glass. And can you fill it half full of water and bring it up to me, please? And as I said, feel free to help yourself to water and snacks and things. It's really informal. Thank you. So, 2 things we need to understand to really, for any of this to make sense. And Geshe-la sometimes teaches this as the pen. Maybe some of you have heard about the pen. In the Diamond Cutter course of study, he actually introduced this concept with this prop, with a glass of water. And it's really interesting because the reason we use this is to try to demonstrate how our minds overlay what it is that we see. From its own side, it is just a container filled with water. Okay? Is this glass half full or is it half empty? Pretty basic question, right? So if you have anyone walk into the room and see this, if you hadn't seen Lada actually fill it and it was just sitting here, you wouldn't know if it had been filled halfway or if I had drunk half of it, right? So really, it's just a glass that goes up to here with water. So is it half full or is it half empty? Well, you could say both. You could say neither. The real answer is it depends on who's looking. So from a business context or from a life context, we say that if you look at something like this and your mind immediately says glass half full, then you're looking at the overlay is negative, right? Like you're running out of something. It's half full and it's going to soon be gone. If your mind immediately says, oh, the glass is half full, then your mind has thrown up an overlay of looking at this as an opportunity. It's filled up that way, right? whether it is an opportunity or an obstacle, whether it's something that is a positive thing or a negative thing, isn't actually coming from this. It's the same object, right? How your mind sees it is coming from you. And it could be either, really, right? But which is more helpful to you? Which one is more empowering to you? And that's one of the questions we ask. I am going to actually tell you the pen thing because I find that it's, I like the pen thing. Because the cup does explain the overlay. It does explain the potentiality of this, which is what we call emptiness. But that's kind of where we stop. And what this does is that this prop will help me explain to you both emptiness and karma. And we need to understand both of those concepts for any of the rest of what I'm going to say to make any sense at all. So what is this?
It's a pen.
It's a pen. It's not a trick question. It is a pen. Or is it? So, do you still have a dog?
Yes.
What's your dog's name?
Baba.
Bubba. If Bubba came in the room and saw this, what would Bubba do?
He'd probably bite it.
Chew on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, to Bubba, the dog, Bubba's gorgeous, by the
He's
way.
not gonna
but-
write a story with it or
No,
anything.
not going to write to his doggy girlfriend. And
No.
yeah. So to Bubba the dog, this object is something to chew on.
Mhm.
Let's call it a chew toy for sake of ease. To every human in this room, this is a pen, right? And if you see Bubba chewing on it, you'll think, oh, how cute. The dog thinks the pen is a chew toy. But from the dog side, as Sarah takes the pen away and starts to write notes about our marketing meeting, the dog is going to go, what are you doing taking a perfectly good chew toy and not using it in the way that it's not using it as a chew toy? What are you doing? You're not chewing on it, right? So, who's right?
The dog.
We say that we define a thing by how it functions, right? So, does this function as a pen? Yes. Does it function as a chew toy? Yeah. But can you actually ever not see this as a pen?
If you have Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But if you have all your faculties about you, you can't act even, okay, I need $1 million. If I wish really, 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 really hard, can I look at this? Because if it's my choice to see it as a chew toy or a pen, can I choose to see it as $1 million? I can't, right? No matter how, and I really could use $1 million, okay? But no matter how hard I wish, and it's not that I don't wish hard enough for it, this is, while I am still sitting here with the causes and conditions that brought me here as a person, I can't, in a state to see a pen, I can't see this as anything else. But Bubba cannot see this as a pen no matter how much Sarah patiently dog whispers to him and, really, really trains, because dogs are pretty smart in terms of being trainable for things, but never will Bubba be able to pick this up and write a story with it. Never. In the incarnation of a dog, right? So, what is it really? It's both, right? But what this is depends on who's looking. That is the emptiness of this object. This object, we can't even really call it a pen. It's just an object which has a cylinder and a clicky thing and, some colors and shapes. Because if an Alzheimer person came in, they might not recognize this as a pen. They might think it's a magic wand or, something to tie up their hair with, right? And it would function as that for them. All it is some data that your mind takes in and imputes pen. That Bubba's mind takes in and imputes chew toy. So this thing from its own side is what we call empty of being any of those things, essentially fixed from its own side. And the reason that it couldn't essentially be fixed, we could say self-existently a pen from its own side, is that if it were, then everyone who saw it, including Bubba the dog and the Alzheimer person, would only be able to see it as a pen. It would have to be a pen 100% of the time to absolutely everyone and everything that came across it. Okay? And so that's using this tool to explain the concept of emptiness. Emptiness is what we call pure potential. Emptiness is the absence of any self-nature, any fixedness of being something from its own side. Okay? Here's the karma bit. If you are a person, you are forced to see this as a pen. No matter how much I wish it were $1 million, I am forced to see this as a pen. And the dog is forced to see it as a chew toy. The thing that forces them or us is our karma. It's our karma that makes us human, that makes us see this as a pen. If you have suddenly the karma to be a dog, you'll start salivating and you'll want to chew it. Okay? So that's how this one object demonstrates both of those concepts. So at the very, very base, karma, which is a Sanskrit word, the root is kur, and it means wheel, like something that goes over and over. And at the very, very base, karma means, well, it basically means both cause and effect, because every effect is a new cause. Raw karma is your very thoughts. There's actually 3 types of karma. There's raw karma, which is your mental karma, your thoughts. There's verbal karma, and then there's physical karma, which is your actions. So basically it's whatever you think, say, or do. But they do say that raw karma is a movement of the mind, and they say that we have 65 movements of the mind in a finger snap. Are any of you in film? They say that it takes 65 discrete still images to make 1 second of movement. And it's interesting that the yogis in meditation slowed down the picture enough to count that there were that many movements of mind to make 1 second of motion. I find that really, that's kind of like a Dharma nerdy thing to me. But I find it fascinating because it kind of explains this projecting of our world, right? Like you are the director, the writer, the camera person, and the actor in your movie that you project and you walk through. Don't like what you're seeing on the screen? You need to change the projection, right? So another way of explaining karma is often, or karma and emptiness. The emptiness is often described as a blank screen, like your whole world is a blank screen, and then your karma forces a projection that you see in a certain way. So that's a third way of describing it. Any questions on those 2 concepts? I think everyone's heard of karma, right? It's kind of a pretty common and actually often misused word in modern society, because I think sometimes it's used in the context of just desserts or someone getting what's coming to them. So that's kind of like a one-sided interpretation. They're not wrong, but it's only half of the story. You really, in order to understand the full story of karma, you do need to understand this emptiness concept, this potential of things. And remember again, emptiness is the absence of anything fixed. It's a little, it takes a little bit of, it's one thing for me to blah blah the words to you. It takes a little bit of thinking it out on your own. Like take it to the meditation cushion, and it's one of those things they call the concept a slippery pig, because one day you'll get it and the next second it'll be, when you won't get it, it was when you've got like a really seriously irritating person in your face who really appears irritating from their own side, and all your concepts of screens and projections and it's coming from you goes out the window because they're just like on your last nerve, right?
That's why I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. Because, it happens, right? It happens all the time. And here's the thing.
Why we only
Yeah. In the moment, is that what's really happening? Yeah. Actually, I'm here to tell you that is what is actually happening. In the moment, it's what we call dried cement. You poured that cement a whole long time ago, and now you're dealing with the dried cement. So in the moment, unfortunately, you can't, there's a lot of things you could do to cope with the screaming person or the irritating person, but it's just coping. It's just making sure you don't pour fresh, bad cement that's going to bring you somebody worse in the future. But in the moment, it's what we call a ripening. I like the analogy best to explain karma of gardening, because it is planting seeds and seeing them ripen. So a raw karma, a seed is planted whenever we have a thought, whenever we say something, whenever we do something, and is basically good, bad, or neutral. And we often talk about mixed karma when you have a so-so result, or a good result that goes sour, or a bad result that actually is a blessing in disguise. Those are what we call mixed karmas. It doesn't mean it's one karma. It's actually it means you got a good karma and then a bad karma and then a good karma, or the other way around when you get those mixed karmas. But it means that the seeds run out. So you're planting seeds 24/7, 65 per finger snap. And if you do the math on that, that's a little mind-boggling, if you think about it, since you were first on this planet in this body. Karma grows just like an acorn seed will grow into 1,000-pound tree, or even an apple seed will grow into an apple. Like the ripening, the fruit is always bigger than the initial planting, right? The thing about seeds too is that if you don't give it the proper fertilizer, if you don't give it the proper nutrition and sunlight and nurturing, if you throw a seed onto concrete, it's not going to grow, or it might find its way through the cracks and eventually be this wimpy little thing. Whereas if it was in a freshly tilled, fertile soil, you'll get this, abundant ripening, right? So with karma, good, bad, or otherwise, if you nurture it, so like for bad karma, how we nurture it is we let anger and irritation stew. We ruminate. If you think you can't concentrate, just think about the last time you were pissed off at someone and how long did you think about them, right? You were concentrating, my friend, big time. So, but we do that, right? We ruminate and we tell the story over and over again, and somehow it gets... Do you ever notice how you talk to people who are a little upset, and the more they tell you about the story, the angrier they get, like the more upset they get? Because what they're doing is they're replanting that seed. They're pouring fresh concrete onto the existing ripenings. So everything we say, think, or do is a cause. And then when it ripens, we can either use it up. So with bad stuff, actually, sometimes the best thing is this too shall pass, because it's ripened, and if you just let it run its course and you don't replant it, it's done. But with the good stuff, we want to replant it, but we're so busy enjoying it and using it all up that is when it's gone, we're like, well, what happened? So if we know that we're gardening, then we can replant the good stuff, mitigate the bad stuff, or even try and do away with it altogether. And then we get on what's called an upward spiral. So that's the whole thing about understanding cause and effect and this whole concept of emptiness, because cause and effect makes no sense whatsoever if you don't also start to understand this potentiality, this emptiness, this blank screen, because that's where your power is. That's where you actually have the 100% free will and power, and hopefully, after even this brief little talk, knowledge to apply to that. So, but I gotta tell you, in the moment, when irritating person is like right in your face, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. And it can be very easy to forget about all of these things, because it is dried cement. It is a ripening. Like, you can't change it just because you wish it was something else, right? But the more training you give yourself in the gardening of seeds, the more prepared you will be when you see a weed, or when you see when you see something that you didn't know you planted. Here's the other challenge with this, is there is a time gap between planting your seed and getting your ripening, and there is I can't give you a scientific formula for that. And that's where we run into all of our problems, because we think that the thing that immediately preceded the current experience is what caused it. We think that the person being irritating is the reason why we're pissed off, because it sure feels that way. But there is no irritating person in the world if there aren't people who are irritated. So it's, but again, you can't just say, okay, I'm not going to be irritated, I'm not going to be irritated, I'm not going to be irritated. You can't, although, Master Shantideva, who is a sage in our lineage who wrote the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, he does say that in the initial stages, when you first hear about this stuff, and the next time that irritating person comes up to you and you can just feel yourself wanting to react, run away. Get yourself out of there. Like, just don't make it worse. Or be like a bump on a log. Just sit there and take it. And, just Lama Marut, who's one of our amazing teachers in our lineage, he designed a yoga asana. It's called the Mukha Bandha. Mukha means mouth, Bandha means to lock it. So it's to shut your mouth, right? To lock your mouth. So he says, when you get the irritating person coming, you have to say, oh, wait, I just have to do a yoga pose. And then you go and you assume the pose of Mukha Bandha asana. And it's amazing how much every fiber will not want to do that. But they do that. They say that if in the early stages after you hear this, it sounds great in theory, but it's not practical in application, then don't try to not put yourself in situations that are going to be crazy making as much as you can. It's not the easiest thing to remove yourself either. But knowing that it's going to cause that effect in you, prepare yourself, right? And here's a famous mantra you can learn to recite in terms of getting yourself of any situation. Repeat after me. I have to go to the bathroom. Get yourself out of there. No one will tell you, no, you cannot go to the bathroom, okay? So it sounds silly, but in the early stages, because here's the other thing. Once you start paying attention to this, the irritating people are going to come at you like bees to honey, because you're actually trying to change this. You're trying to change your habit. You're trying to change. By the way, another word for karma is habit. It's just something that we've habitually created, habitually done, habitually reacted in habitual ways. So what we're trying to do is shift the ways that we're so used to doing things that have always brought us what we don't want. So, if you're spinning water, right, or if you ever tried to walk in water in a circle and then you try to quickly turn the other way, it takes a while before you can actually do it. And initially it feels like you're being pushed backwards, or it feels really hard. But then once you get going and you get the momentum going, then you're fine, right? So it's like that with karma too. And what we're trying to do is get us on an upward spiral and not this treadmill of up and down. Things are good one minute and then horrible the next. There's this cycle in life where whatever it is that we aspire for, be it a good job or a relationship or health, whatever it is, there's kind of this normal trajectory where you can build it up, have some success, and then inevitably it goes, right? Like even the best of relationships, one of you dies eventually. It's inevitable in a human existence. So they say that all of that is the result of seeds ripening. They say the cause for your death is the fact that you were born. That was the cause. So, when you have a cause, you must have a ripening. It's the time gap in between that gives us all of our challenges. So what we're going to be talking about tomorrow in a more practical application, though, is understanding, okay, so if I can at least suspend my disbelief about this emptiness thing and look at life as possibilities, as potential, like, let's try this, it's, if I can walk through the world that way, then what are the causes I need to plant? What are the seeds I need to plant to get the things I want? What are the things I need to do to destroy the seeds I don't want? And what is the most efficient use of my efforts and time? Because we have, in the scheme of things, such a short time. To have the health and the wherewithal and the what they call leisure and fortune to put any of this information into practice, we don't know how much time any of us have, really. We don't. And you've got it right now. So it's like seize the moment, and try it out. Part of the karmic diamond cutter practice is, I said it includes yoga to get your pipes clear from the outside. It includes contemplation to get your pipes clear from the inside. It includes getting really clear on this information, so you add the fuel to all of it. But it also means being really efficient about what you're spending your precious body and mind on. Because you've got a really amazing tool to do something. And you also have everything you need to do it. So this is just giving you some tools for your toolkit. Okay? So let's see. Any questions on that so far? You got a ton of questions, don't you?
Yeah.
You want to ask me what the cause is of this, that, and whatever. By the way, the answers aren't coming from me. They say, I should explain something else to you. They say that there's different degrees of perception. And that most of the time our perceptions are valid but mistaken. We rarely have a correct perception. We have valid perceptions all the time. Is this a cup? Yes. Is it half full? Yes. Is it half empty? Maybe. Valid, depending on what you're feeling in the moment. As long as you're not Alzheimer riddled or on drugs or drunk or whatever, if you're not incapacitated in any way, whatever you're observing is valid. But how you're observing it, they say that until we truly understand cause and effect, truly, Not just that, okay, it's a nice thing to banter about cocktail parties with, but if until we truly get it, um, it's going to take some convincing. It's going to take some practice. So one of the things that we recommend, in addition to the yoga and contemplation, is a tracking system. And we call it the book. And if you come for formal philosophy studies here, we call it the 6-time book. And it's about checking into your mind 6 times a day. But with the Diamond Cutter practice, especially because a lot of people haven't heard about it yet, we just start with tracking twice a day, just to get started. And what it means is that you watch your mind throughout. Well, actually, how Geshe has it laid out is you watch your mind for the morning. So you fill out. It's like keeping a journal, and you make a notation during your lunch break, or sort of midday. And then you continue to watch your mind, and sometime around dinner or just before you go to bed, you see how the second half of your day went. And basically what you do is you comment on something that you know planted a good seed, something that you know planted a bad seed, and what are you going to do about it? So those are like the 3 tracking systems. And what it's useful to do is, once you know what the causes are for some of the effects that you're experiencing, it's useful to track how you're doing with keeping your mind, your speech, and your body in line with planting a good seed. And where, you just had to yell back at that person because, and what are you going to do about it next time? So that's just a general overview. If you come back tomorrow, I'll be handing out the actual template for it, and there's also online resources for free that explain the whole book process. It's a way to do a clinical trial on your own mind, on your own life, and see how you're progressing. One of the other teachers here used to work in a he still works in construction, but he used to work in a environment that was riddled with very unpleasant speech. Like, his coworkers were always fighting or swearing or talking trash about this person or the other. And, at a certain level, they probably saw it as entertainment, but it was really difficult for my friend to listen to. But he did the book, he did the tracking system specifically based on the causes for unpleasantries, for idle speech, for harsh speech, and worked at it really, really scientifically for several months, and it shifted. It shifted in such a dramatic way that he was able to track exactly when it shifted and how it shifted. But it was because, he learned this and was able to utilize it as something practical. So for something to shift in a few months is very quick. Yes, Zoe?
So what do you mean by shifting?
He wasn't surrounded by trash talk anymore. He wasn't surrounded by, the same people. He was still working with the same people, but they weren't having these knockdown, drag-out yelling matches or, and the conversation was suddenly more pleasant.
That's interesting because I'm a longshoreman.
Okay.
And that's something I've dealt with, and I was going to ask you that about, practicing these things with different people in our lives.
Yeah.
And just how challenging it is when you feel like you're making headway here or there, and then these relationships, for whatever reason, have to continue, and just that kind of struggle. So.
What's really good, though, is when you have people like that around you, because you can really use them. You can use them because that's actually why they're there. They're there to teach you patience. They're there to teach you, or they're there to show you where you want to garden better, And it's interesting because as your karmic management becomes effective, you won't have that many opportunities. And so you will actually look back and think how precious these people were. These same irritating, noisy, whatever people were, because they helped you get to a better place. But yeah, it's a real, I call it I use the word dharma because it's just, I call it the dharma laboratory. When you're in a real vibrant and active workplace, it gives you a lot of fuel to practice with. I personally had a couple years where I was able to live a very yogic life and, just teach yoga and just teach Buddhist philosophy and go on retreats and stuff, and it was all lovely, but it's very similar to living in a cave, really. And now I'm back in a corporate environment and responsible for people, and oh my goodness, the lessons that are coming at me every single day, it's fabulous. Like, it really is fabulous, actually, because I really get visceral lessons on practice. Because all this stuff is really great in theory, but if it's just relegated to the realm of theory, you never really know if it's really improved or not. Like, you just don't know. You have nothing to test it against. And so yeah, if you are in an environment that's particularly challenging, it actually will give you a really great forum to practice. Basically, for what we'll go over to tomorrow is the top 10, what they call the top 10. Well, the way Geshe-la presents it is really beautiful because he presents it as wisdoms. Like, rather than presenting it in the negative way, which is how it's scripturally done, it's like the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not, right? Like, it's kind of like that. And it's very similar. In fact, this is the thing about authentic spirituality, is that if you take it right back to its roots, take the dogma out of it, take the religious structure out of it, take the humans out of it, like, if you actually go to the teachings, they're all saying the same thing. What goes around comes around. Love thy neighbor. Like, it's just, and actually what goes around comes around is very, very karmic. Like, that is actually the bottom line. You don't like something, don't do it to anybody else. You want something, make sure someone else gets it, or at the very least share it. Sounds simple, but it's really hard to do in the moment when you're surrounded by whatever, right? When you're in the heat of the moment, when you're maybe not feeling at your best and you didn't get enough sleep, or you're sad, or you're depressed, or whatever, it can be really, really hard. But even everything I've just described, heat of the moment, sad, depressed, all of them have a cause. There is an actual cause. By the way, one of the biggest causes for low self-esteem is idle talk. That's a direct correlation, because when you talk trash about others, you will end up with the result of feeling like trash yourself. So, like that. So there's kind of like the top 10 basic stuff that would help anybody. And then with the survey tomorrow, we're going to cover 46 different correlations so that we can get way more specific with things that might, that's not my phone, is it? No. That must be the radio. Okay. But, but yeah, it can seem like when you're in a challenging environment that things would be so much better if you weren't in that environment, but it's actually the best fuel for practicing these techniques. And the thing with causes and seeds is, just by changing your location does not change your karma. Sometimes I get asked the question, I'm in a really horrible situation, should I leave? And the answer is, well, if you don't have the capacity to stay and not plant more bad seeds, then yes, go. But know that your seeds are going to follow you until they have ripened. But it's the same thing about if you can't handle it, like, get out of there, right? Like, get yourself out of there, or or like shut the mouth or whatever. Like you get yourself into a place where you can build your karma and emptiness muscles so that you can deal with things better. And then eventually, when you get really good at it, that horrible situation won't even arise anymore because you've actually shifted the causes. Like, it did not arise in and of itself from its own side self-existently either. So as you get more clear on the causes for your effects and you get more control over it, remember I said earlier, like, you can't have an irritating person if you're not irritated? Can you imagine not even being able to feel irritated? And I'm not talking morphine haze dull. I'm talking like, like the person is still there, but you can't, you're not even remotely feeling what you would have felt before under the exact same circumstances. So it's kind of fun to think about that in some of your most challenging situations. This is where the contemplation is good. Like, on your cushion, try to get a real sense in your body of what it would feel like to not have that reaction. And play the story in your mind and just feel yourself not having that reaction. Like, what would it feel like? What would it feel like to not ever be able to get angry? And I'm not saying that you're a doormat or like not that at all. Like, just to be impossible to be angered. Like, what would that feel like? What would it feel like to be bursting with compassion every time you've heard somebody swear? Because that's not your normal reaction, right? So, but what would it feel like? And you practice on your cushion. That little technique is what they call taking the goal as the path, where you imagine what you would be like if you had perfected your understanding of seeds and of potential, and you just visualize. It's like a fantasy, but you just play it in your mind, and you get a real and make that movie like Technicolor and surround sound, and like flesh it out, like have fun with it, because it's a really good way to imprint where you want to plant your seeds. Okay. What else? Why don't we just stand up and take a stretch and get some water and some fruits, and we'll just take a bit of a break, and then I just have not much more to chat about tonight, so should we pause this for a sec?